Before I start my official remarks, I'd like to point out that there are more people that are dear to me in this one room than I've ever seen before. And part of me thinks that we should treat this like the President's State of the Union. And we should choose one of you to go to a secure bunker in an undisclosed location. So, just saying. But now officially, good evening. I'd like to thank Cluster for this great honor, and to Tajay for making me tear up, and to thank all of you who came here to support Cluster's work, but especially those who came in response to my personal invitation. Thank you. There is a great quote, originally written about the role of a free press, which says, "Its job is to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable." That basically sums up my whole 42-year career. I've helped start hundreds of social programs, all designed to comfort the afflicted. And I've given dozens, maybe hundreds of speeches designed to afflict the comfortable by spurring them to do more for the homeless and hungry. But tonight is different. You're here because you're on the side of the angels. You believe in things like equality, giving educational opportunity to children of color and immigrants, protecting the vulnerable like people with mental health challenges and poor people facing eviction, and using mediation to peacefully resolve conflicts. You may be financially comfortable, but I suspect you're also afflicted every time you hear the news. Almost everyone I talk to is afflicted because the moral ideals they've cherished and the government norms that they've taken for granted are being trampled every day. So tonight, I want to give you hope. You should know that I'm offering hope because I'm a peculiar kind of optimist. In my family, I always say that my wife, Roberta, there, she's a pessimist. She believes something terrible is going to happen, the house is going to burn down. In contrast, I'm an optimist. I agree the house may burn down, but I am confident that we will scramble out the window to safety just in time. My peculiar brand of optimism combines a clear-eyed recognition of all the ugliness happening in the world with the survivor's resilience that believes we will scramble out the other side. In that spirit, my first message of hope comes from Maya Angelou. Every storm runs out of rain. It's true. Every disaster, man-made or natural, eventually runs out of rain because we all know that this too shall pass. In Roman ethics, all that mattered was amassing wealth, power, and glory for yourself and your children. Emperor Nero, I think, would feel very comfortable in today's White House. But we're here tonight celebrating a very different set of moral values at the heart of our Judeo-Christian tradition that focus on protecting the poor, the vulnerable, and the stranger. My second message of hope is this. Remember, we are on the side of the angels and the saints. The fact that all things pass doesn't mean that history is just a senseless oscillation between good and evil with no real victories and no real progress. I believe that Dr. Martin Luther King was right when he said the arc of history is long, but it bends towards justice. When I was in Weight Watchers, there's a segue for you. Everyone weighed in each week. Our emotions would be buffeted because we were up 0.4 of a pound or down 0.3 of a pound. The Weight Watcher app would chart our weight, and then for any period of time, it would put in what statisticians call a trend line and show you that for that last year, your weight has gone up or your weight has gone down. If we think of the trend lines through the last 1,000 years of human history, you see that Dr. King was right. The historical trend line shows more equality, more freedom, less monarchy, more democracy, and more rule of law. My third message of hope is history too is on our side. So, can we just sit back and pray for good to prevail? No! Hope you all heard that. There's a story about a rabbi who lived alone by a great river, and one day it flooded. And as the waters rose, he climbed on top first of his furniture and eventually up to his roof. And everywhere he looked, all he could see were raging floodwaters. And he raised his arms and eyes to God. He said, God, I've tried to live a good life. I've tried to follow the commandments. Save me. And he prayed, he prayed, he prayed. And in a few minutes, he heard the splash of oars. He looks down, and there's a rowboat. And the man says, come down, Rabbi. And he goes, oh, go away. God will save me. And he goes back to praying. And then he hears the roar of a powerboat, a big one that can hold 12 people. And the guy says, quick, jump in. We'll save everyone in the neighborhood. He goes, no, God will save me. And he goes back to praying. And then he hears the chop of a helicopter, and a rope ladder drops to his feet. And the guy goes, quick, climb up. And he goes, no, God will save me. And he prays, and he prays, and he prays, and then he drowns. And he's a good man, and he goes, so he goes to heaven. But when he sees God, he says, God, what happened? I tried to live a good life. I prayed so ardently. Why did you abandon me? And God said, I sent you a rowboat, a powerboat, and a helicopter. What more did you want from me? The moral of the story is that thoughts and prayers are never enough. Let me say that again. Thoughts and prayers are never enough. We have to use all the gifts God gave us to repair the world. But what about times like now, when things are dark and we're not sure that this time the good guys will win? Here's a Jewish story for that too. You all know the story of the Exodus. The Israelites were slaves in Egypt. Moses led them fleeing into the desert. They came to the Red Sea, were trapped there with the Egyptian army hot on their heels. Then Moses raised his staff, the Red Sea parted, the Israelites fled through, the Egyptian army followed. Once the Israelites were clear, the Red Sea waters crashed down and drowned the Egyptians. That's the movie version. The rabbinic tradition is that this isn't quite what happened. The Israelites fled and they were trapped at the Red Sea. They could see a massive dust cloud rising from the giant Egyptian army chasing them. They could hear the thudding of the hooves. The horizon glinted with all the sunlight reflected from the shields and the spears and the swords and the chariots of the Egyptian army. The Israelites were milling around, complaining, cursing their fate, going, why do we follow this Meshuggah of Moses when the Egyptians get here? Let's apologize and say we're sorry. Can we please go back to being slaves? Moses faced the sea and he raised his staff, and nothing happened. Moses' brother Aaron was there, and so was Aaron's brother-in-law, Nachshon. And Nachshon looked around at all the milling crowd of terrified Israelites, and he knew what needed to be done. And nobody was doing it. But he had the courage and he walked in to the water, up to his knee, and nothing happened. He walked in up to his waist, and nothing happened. He looked around, still no one's following. He walks up to his chest, and nothing happens. And he looks back, and the cloud of dust is bigger, and the thudding of the hooves is louder, and the wailing of the Israelites is bigger, and he goes up to his neck, and still nothing happens. And he looks at God, up to the heavens, and he closes his eyes and walks in further, and the water rises and rises and rises, and it touches his lips. And the sea split. The Israelites run through, the Egyptians are drowned, and the rest is history. I believe if we continue to embrace and preserve our moral values of compassion, tolerance, kindness, and mutual respect, and we use all the gifts God gave us, and we reach deep into our souls to find the kind of courage and faith that Nachshon showed at the Red Sea, then the light of our ideals will again shine bright enough to lead America to be a force for good here at home and throughout the world. The only question is, how soon? Thank you.
One more time for the honoree, Karl Bertrand.